Hello, I'm Natasha and this is Noir Histoire. Before we get into today's episode, I'd like to take a few minutes to give you a heads up on some things that I'm working on for 2019. One of my goals is to expand the amounts and types of content that So during January and February, I'll be releasing episodes from a new interview series that I'm experimenting with. The series will focus on interviews with Black people where we discuss their career journeys and work philosophies. I'd welcome feedback on the interviews, so let me know if you like them, want more, have recommendations for making them better, etc. You can contact me as well if you'd like to be interviewed or know someone that you think would be a great interview subject. For more information, you can visit the career interviews page on noirhistoire.com. You can also follow and contact me on social media at noirhistoire. I'm currently active on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and a little bit on Twitter. If you enjoyed the episode, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to ensure you don't miss any future episodes. Noir Histoire is also a podcast, so you can subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts if you prefer to listen to audio. And now without further ado, let's get into today's interview. In this episode, we'll be hearing from Christopher Taylor, a job hunt strategist hailing from Chesterfield, Virginia. Chris's work experience began with the Burger King broiler and later included an internship at Lizzie Grubman Public Relations, a decade in sales at a large company, and a few years as a headhunter before striking out on his own. In addition to his past roles, Chris also shares his philosophy on the importance of identifying your passions, as well as understanding the unique skills you bring to a company.
Can you give me a brief overview of your background? Where are you from? What were you like as a kid? What were your interests?
Yeah, originally I am from Richmond, Virginia, actually a suburb just outside of Richmond by the name of Chesterfield. Went to school there, lived there up until the age of 18 until I went away to college at Hampton University. As far as what I was like as a kid, I was an only child. So as an only child, you do a lot of thinking. So did a lot of thinking. I feel like that made me highly strategic. Also, I think as an only child, you really, really crave interaction with others. So I was always excited to be surrounded by friends, surrounded to be interacting with new people, and I still feel that excitement to this day. And I think the other thing that really set me apart as a kid, I was always naturally curious. So I always had a million questions for everyone. And I still do. I'm still a very curious person. So.
And what kind of student were you?
In high school, I was a 3.0 student. So I was a solid B student and really, really stepped it up in college. For me, and I say most people, I perform a lot better when I'm learning material that I'm interested in. And I was a lot more connected to my institution. Where I went to school was a lot more connected to my teachers, a lot more connected to the curriculum in college than I was in high school. So I really excelled in college. Yeah.
Okay. And so did you work during high school? Or when did you have your first job and what was it?
First job, I was 16, and that was at Burger King.
Okay.
This summer. I worked the broiler. So if you know anything about working fast food, I was the guy that actually made the burgers. Like that's all I did. Like I didn't touch fries. I didn't touch the cash register. I didn't touch the drive-through. I was strictly the guy on the broiler, strictly burgers. So I did that for a summer. And my second job was at Crops, which is a grocery store, and I was there for a number of years. I was a cashier as well as the guy that ran the groceries out to your car. So a lot of interacting with customers. And then I had another job at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, actually physically cleaning the cars. So like they would return the cars, I would wash the exterior of the car, vacuum the interior of the car, make sure there wasn't any type of like cigarette type smells or anything like that in the vehicle, which I really enjoyed. You wouldn't think that cleaning cars would be too much fun, but I really enjoyed the independence of the role because like I really did my own thing all day, every day. So yeah, it's kind of where I started before really getting into things from a college standpoint.
Okay. And then you mentioned that you attended Hampton. What attracted you to the school?
Uh, when I look at my family background, everyone went to an HBCU. So when it comes to my family, parents, aunts, uncles, everyone either went to Virginia State University, which is in Petersburg, Virginia, or they went to Hampton University. So, I always wanted to go the HBCU route, and, and Hampton's where I wanted to be, and applied, and it was no problem getting in. It was great.
Okay. And so tell me about your major and what inspired you to pursue that course of study.
Yeah, yeah. I majored in broadcast journalism. Um, and I'd say what inspired me, when I think back to when I was in high school and thinking back on the classes that I enjoyed, I had a communications class, a communications course that um, I really had a good time, and I really had a good experience. I think on top of that, my family, we were always like a very big news family. So I come from a family where my parents got the newspaper twice a day. So there was a morning paper, and then there was the evening paper. So they got both papers. They read both papers. They watched the news every morning. They watched the news every night. So I really came from like a heavy news family. We just always knew what was going on locally. So I think that pushed me into mass media and into broadcast journalism. Um, and then when I got there, ironically, I found myself a lot more attracted to print. So, as a journalism student, a large part of the curriculum is written, because obviously someone has to read the material that the newscaster is speaking. And then the other portion is kind of a verbal um, curriculum. And I really enjoyed the written based curriculum. So I was more of a print guy, but I kind of stuck with the broadcast piece and knocked it out. So.
Okay. And then following college, how was your transition into the working world? How prepared did you feel for your career?
Yeah,
And
yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
and then also looking back to that time now, like several years later, is there anything you wish you knew then that you've learned along the way you wish you could have told your younger self?
Yeah. So I'll start with the first question. So going to Hampton University, majoring in broadcast journalism, I'd say by about my junior year, I'd realized that I didn't want to do broadcast journalism. I didn't want to be on TV. I had a couple of internships, and that exposed me to the world of radio. I interned at a radio station for a summer, um, but I decided that I wanted to go into a path that was more business oriented. So I got an internship at a place called Lizzie Grubman Public Relations in Manhattan. It was a top PR firm. Lizzie Grubman was probably the number one uh, PR agency, entertainment PR agency in the country at the time. They ended up having a television show on MTV called Power Girls. But I interned there for a summer, and that was pretty cool. Um, but that kind of gave me a mix between media and the business side of things. So I decided that I wanted to go more of a business route. Um, I ended up landing a role with a Fortune 500 company doing sales for them. So that was my first job out of school. I think there was another portion to that question that I didn't answer. What am I missing?
Um, Following your graduation from college and moving into the working world, how prepared did you feel for your career?
Yeah, preparation. So it's interesting. And I think a lot of people have this experience after going to an HBCU. I felt prepared from the standpoint of I was a great writer. So I felt like I could communicate well. So I was definitely prepared there. I feel like I was prepared from a confidence standpoint, uh, prepared from the standpoint of prior experiences, internships, curriculum, that sort of thing. I think where I did lack was the tech piece. when I was in school, we didn't have the same technology as a lot of other colleges. Being an HBCU, maybe the funding wasn't there. I'm not quite sure, but the tech piece was kind of missing. So, it's a little bit behind from a tech standpoint. I had to learn that on my own, which I ended up doing. It was no problem. But I think that's where I was kind of behind on. As far as what I would do differently, when I came out of college, I hadn't heard of the company that hired me. I had never heard of the name. I wasn't familiar. I didn't know anything about sales. To be honest with you, and it's going to sound kind of crazy, in my mind, when I thought of sales, I thought of Al Bundy. Like I'm thinking Al Bundy selling women's shoes. That was my only. That was all I knew about sales. To be honest with you, it sounds nuts, but this company had a great comp package, amazing benefits, and had a very high potential for growth. So I took the job. They shipped me to Omaha, Nebraska to kind of get started with my career, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But what I would change is I kind of went into the opportunity based upon what they were willing to give me and based upon the amount of perceived stability that I had with the company or with that opportunity. I would go back and do a better job of taking the time to assess what I'm passionate about as an individual and chasing that, even if it means starting at a comp level that that's a little more humble. That's something I would consider sacrificing.
Okay. And so let's talk a little bit about your experiences following that company. Either what led you to leaving that position, or I guess what pulled you towards your next role.
Yeah, I mean there's a lot in between. I worked in sales for this one company for over 10 years. I moved all across the country. So they moved me from Hampton to Omaha, Nebraska, Omaha, Nebraska to Fayetteville, Arkansas, Fayetteville, Arkansas to Philadelphia, Philly to New York, and New York to Georgia, to Atlanta, Georgia. So, oftentimes when you work in sales, especially for a large company, each time you get a promotion, you move to a new customer or a new territory. And that's kind of the track that I was on. And it was a company that had real set timelines of you're expected to be promoted in 12 months. You're expected to be promoted in 18 months when you're in this next role. You're expected to be promoted in 36 months when you're in the next role. So there were these set timelines. It was kind of promotion after promotion after promotion, which one didn't allow me to get very comfortable in my personal life, which was kind of rough. So I kind of paid the price there. And then the other thing is, I never really enjoyed what I was doing. I mean, there were times when I was like, okay, this role is okay, or this role is the best case scenario within that company. But, I was never passionate about what I was doing by any means. I wasn't passionate about the product. I wasn't too passionate about the customer. I don't think that I meshed very well with the corporate culture. It was a very conservative company. Yeah, so I think that was off. When I initially started with that company, I came out of school in 2004, so it was a very different landscape at that time. And at that time, if you were working for a Fortune 500 company or a large company, you had a lot of stability. And that's obviously changed. I mean, now large companies are going through corporate restructurings on an annual basis. So, time went by. I was with the company for about 10 years. They started going through restructurings regularly, as companies do now, and I ended up getting laid off. And I didn't really expect it, but it's the best thing that's ever happened to me in my life because, to be honest with you, I didn't have the courage to walk away from a situation that wasn't right. for me, or at least at that time in my life, I didn't have the courage. So they kind of forced my hand with that one, which was a blessing. So.
Okay. And then you've since moved on, or at present, you're now a job hunt strategist. How did that come about?
Yeah. So after leaving that sales role, or after leaving that company, um, I got laid off, and I was going through the job hunt. And for the first time in my life, I had an opportunity to evaluate what I was passionate about. I mean, someone actually gave me a great piece of advice. I met a guy who was my second or third cousin. I never met him before. First time meeting the guy, and he was a recruiter. I had no clue what a recruiter did. He was actually a headhunter. I had no clue what a headhunter was, and he kind of explained it to me. And he said, as far as your situation is concerned, um, whatever you do, ensure that you don't do the same thing that you were doing previously that was making you unhappy. So I was really unhappy with what I was doing. And I thought about that. And for the first time in my life, I started to really dig deep within myself as far as, what am I passionate about? What excites me? And as I was going through the job hunt, everyone was telling me, hey, I'm sorry you got to go through this. It's going to be a rough time, but it's going to get better. And I'm going through this process, and I'm just having an amazing time. I was like, I love hunting for a job.
So you're that like one special person that actually enjoys going through the job hunt process and interviewing and whatnot.
I may be the only one. Like, I was really, truly having a ball. Like, when it came to putting together a resume, and when it came to putting together a LinkedIn page, connecting with people on LinkedIn, meeting new people, having conversations, applying, interviewing, learning about new companies, learning about new industries, learning about myself, I was having a ball. And I was like, this is not normal. So maybe there's something behind this. So I was like, hey, well, maybe I could be a recruiter. Maybe that's something that I could do and enjoy. So I wanted to test it before I really dove into it, before I dove into a new career track. So I found a volunteer organization by the name of Friends of Refugees.
Okay.
And I started working with them twice a week on a volunteer basis, basically helping refugees find typically their first role in the States. And after they find that first role, they would typically come back and find secondary roles and try to get them on more of a career track. And I loved it. Like, those 2 days of the week were my favorite days of the week. So I did that, and that was awesome. That was a great experience, and that kind of solidified things that this is the direction I wanted to go. And then the other thing that I did that I think was unique at that time was I really wanted to land my next role through networking. And once again, it may sound kind of nutty, but kind of leading up to me getting laid off, I had friends that maybe had just recently graduated graduate school, or maybe they gotten laid off themselves, or my fiance at the time, or was she my girlfriend at the time? She was my fiance at the time. So my fiance at the time, she'd look for different roles, and she'd been, in and out of different opportunities and situations. And I always told them, hey, you got to network. And no one wanted to network. So I was like, now that I'm going through this process myself, I don't want to be a hypocrite. So I want to land this next role through networking, and I want to show people that you can actually have a good time networking. It doesn't have to be this big scary monster. So I decided that I was going to sit down with one new person every day and have a conversation. And it really didn't matter too much about who that person was. I talked to a friend and I say, let's get some coffee. We get coffee. And I say, you know what? Can you recommend someone else that I could talk to that you know? And I just talked to another complete stranger the next day at a coffee shop. And it's kind of kept this process going. So I met with someone new every day. And over about the span of 2-3 months, I kept track. I wrote it all down, wrote down all my interactions. And I sat down with over 100 individuals.
Wow.
So a lot of conversations. And at that point in time, I had a list of companies that I wanted to work for. And that led me to the number one company on my list. I landed the job at the number one company on my list because I was willing to have 100 conversations with random people and then just kind of see where it takes me. And each conversation got me a little closer to where I wanted to be. And each conversation taught me something new that I didn't know. So, yeah.
Okay. And so, if I'm not mistaken, you're currently self-employed, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So,
So that's a change.
yeah, it's a big change. It's a very big change. Actually, I'm skipping a pretty big piece of the story.
Well, by all means, sure.
So yeah, so I got the job that I was looking for with the top recruiting agency. So I became a headhunter. Uh, I worked a nationwide desk, so people from all over the country and some international, basically connecting people to opportunity. And did that for about 2 years. I ended up walking away from that situation. And I walked away because when you're a headhunter, I loved the job. The job was amazing. I loved it. Uh, but when you're a headhunter, your loyalty is tied to the companies in which you're serving. And if you're serving great companies, that's awesome. So like I'd have some really good clients, whether it's Johnson and Johnson or Univision or Nestle, it was great. But I had a lot of really, really bad clients too. I mean, people that were just jerks, just bad people, uh, people that were going into the hiring process with malicious intent, looking to underpay an individual 60, 70,000 a year, looking to work you 80 hours a week, looking for you to travel 5 days a week, every week, just really looking to get over on vulnerable individuals. And that's something that I wasn't comfortable being a part of. So I ended up walking away and figuring out how can I pursue what I'm passionate about while eliminating kind of that roadblock, eliminating that piece that I didn't enjoy. And that's when I came up with the occupation optimist and basically taking all the secrets that I learned um, and helping the everyday job seeker find their next role, because the average person doesn't know how to find a job, and it's not their fault. Like, your job is to do a good job at your job. It's not to be a professional job seeker. So, what types of tips and advice and secrets can I share with the average person that I learned working with hiring managers, directors of talent acquisition, recruiters, and headhunters on a daily basis? And from there, the occupation optimist was born.
Like, what does your average, or I guess normal day look like now? Both working for yourself and also helping people find positions that they can also be passionate about.
Yeah. Average day, I do some business development. I mean, people have to know I exist. So maybe I'll make a post on LinkedIn, or at one point in time I was doing a lot of writing. So I was writing articles for the Muse and Business Insider, Time Magazine, Black Enterprise features. So just basically making people aware of the fact that I exist and what I bring to the table and what I can do for you. A lot of word of mouth, a lot of individuals coming to me saying, hey, here's my situation, can you help me? Helping individuals when it comes to their resume, helping them when it comes to their LinkedIn, helping them when it comes to networking strategy, and also helping when it comes to job hunt strategy.
And so we're kind of going to switch gears here.
Yeah.
And talk more about like your ideologies and things like that. How do you personally define success?
Yeah. I mean, for me, success is linked to happiness. It's linked to fulfillment, and it's linked to peace of mind. So those three pieces, if you can find a way to feel fulfilled, you're feeling happy on a daily basis and you have peace of mind, I'd say that you are successful. Because it's not an easy thing to do, and it's not easy to check those three boxes. And I think a lot of effort um, goes into ensuring that those three boxes in your life are checked.
Okay. And then branching off from that, would you say that the current reality of your career, has it fallen short, matched, or surpassed your aspirations and expectations? Based on your own definition, would you say that you're successful?
Yeah, I absolutely love what I'm doing. I absolutely love what I'm doing on a daily basis. I love the fact that I'm reaching countless people, you know, not just in Atlanta, but across the country and really around the world. I've been working internationally, which is amazing, which is a blessing. I mean, to be honest with you, yeah, I think that I am successful. I absolutely love what I'm doing, and I can't wait to continue to grow and touch more people and help more people land the jobs that they want versus the jobs they feel like they have to take. Um, Absolutely, yes.
Great. And what goals or plans are you currently pursuing?
Yeah,
I mean, that you can share at this
yeah,
point.
definitely. Um, Definitely looking forward to doing more international work. Um, I've worked with clients in Trinidad, Jamaica, had a couple of clients in the country of Colombia, and I've had 5 or 6 clients in Ghana. So that's been pretty exciting. But the big project that I'm working on right now that will be ready very soon. I'm working on putting together a video or an e-learning course, um, which definitely would help me to reach people around the country, reach people around the world, um, really at their level of convenience and at a much lower price point. So it's like basically you get this video and you pull out your laptop and you can be sitting in your bedroom, put your laptop in your lap at 2 o'clock in the morning and go through the video and get all the information that I would give my everyday client. And once again, at a reduced price. So that's what I'm really looking forward to. And I'll be shooting that in the next couple of weeks.
Do you have an idea of like when that'll be going live?
Yeah, I'm hoping, I mean, definitely early 2019.
Okay.
Yes. And I love to share that with you.
I know you spoke earlier about when you first graduated from college, you know, getting prepared and things like that, learning more of the technical skills, as well as a better understanding of what you wanted out of a role versus, you know, the job that's available to you. But beyond that, is there any other career or just life advice in general that you would offer to your younger self or any other young person that's still in school or just getting ready to enter the workforce, or
Yeah.
even just trying to navigate their early career?
Mm. Um, yeah, I would say a couple of things. Um, First, if you're an individual who is currently in school, I like to kind of break down the um, the academic landscape in 3 boxes, right? So you've got your academic performance, which may be like your grade point average or your scholarships or whatever. You've got internships, um, and then you've got like any type of on-campus leadership, which like may include organizations. So think about where are you strongest, where are you most comfortable, and where are you really excelling. Like there are certain individuals that may have a 4.0 GPA. That's great. But there may be someone else that has a 2.8 GPA and has 5 internships, and that's awesome too. Or maybe there's someone that has a 3.2 GPA one internship, and let's say they're president of the junior class, and they're also president of the Future Business Leaders of America, the campus chapter. So kind of think about what do you bring to the table, and kind of what area of your collegiate experience can you maximize. That's one tip I give you. And then the second tip I'd give is think about what makes you stand out. What do you do better than your peers? And I'm the type of person, I'm very big on leaning into your strengths. I'm not really the type of person that's very big on applying too much attention to like your weaknesses and trying to turn a weakness into a strength. I'm bigger on focus on your strengths, and let's push that forward as aggressively as possible. So what separates you from someone else? And then how can you let the everyday person who is a complete stranger know or quickly understand where your strengths lie?
Great. Okay. And so the last question in our regular part of the interview will be,
Yeah.
imagine it's years from now and you're nearing or already retired. When you look back on your career, what accomplishments or achievements would make you consider it a roaring success? I guess, what would you be proudest of?
Yeah. I would be most proud of helping people who are underrepresented in some way. So when I look at my demographic, when I look at the people that I think that I naturally speak to, as well as the people that naturally gravitate toward me, it's typically women of all shades, it's people of color, it's LGBTQIA, and it's the international community. Like that's really my hotspot. So if I can help those groups of people do what they want to do, where they want to do it, that would make me happy.
Right. And so, bonus question.
Yeah.
Let's talk about like some other things that have inspired you throughout your career.
Yeah.
What, or have you read like any books from whatever genre that's been inspirational or provided some sort of guidance or something along those lines for you with regards to your career?
No books jump out specifically as far as guidance toward my career. With that
Or
being said,
life in general.
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I love to read. I love to read any type of self-help books. I love to read any books that give me exposure to other cultures, other groups of people, other ways of life, other religions. That's what I'm really into. Right now, I'm reading this book. It's called Half Broken Horses. It's by Jeanette Walls, who's also the author of The Glass Castle, which is one of my favorite books. But really cool book about a woman in rural America in the early 1900s that wants to be a career woman. That book is awesome. And I'm also reading a book called Ask and It Is Given, about the basically about the benefits of positive thinking.
Okay. And then I know you mentioned the family member that offered you some career advice when you first met, but have there been any other people, famous or only known to you, that have inspired you or shaped your career?
Yeah, I've got another cousin that I am first cousin. I'm very close to. He's kind of like a brother. I'm an only child, so he's probably the closest thing I have to a brother. But he is a serial entrepreneur.
Okay.
And at one point in time, he was He was a financial analyst or a broker or something like that with Goldman Sachs. And he was just making an obnoxious amount of money. I mean, an unbelievable amount of money. And he ended up, excuse me, I dropped something, but he ended up quitting. He ended up leaving his job. And everyone in the family thought he was crazy. Everyone thought he'd lost his mind. He quit his job and moved from New York to Atlanta and opened a restaurant. And everyone thought he was nuts. But he was able to walk away from a situation that made him uncomfortable, or an industry that made him uncomfortable for whatever reason, and pursue what it is he was passionate about. And he always pushed me to do the same. And it took me a long time before I was able to put together the courage to actually pursue what I was passionate about. I mean, the guy talked to me for years. But if it wasn't for him kind of pushing me, planting that seed, leading and showing me that it could be done, I would never have given recruiting a chance and would never have become a headhunter for a recruiting agency. Because I would have thought that it was just it's a crazy dream that's completely unrealistic. And now I see, now that I work with individuals, job seekers on a daily basis, people all across the country, all across the world, I see that making those transitions are not unheard of by any means.
Key takeaways. Salaries are obviously important because you want to ensure that you can meet your financial responsibilities and obligations, but be sure to also assess your interest and passion for your career or position. Take the time to think about what drives and fulfills you. A layoff or job loss can be stressful because of the accompanying uncertainty and possible financial hardships, but these life events can also be an opportunity to leave situations that aren't right for you, or just to move on to bigger and better things. There isn't always a clear-cut or straight path for getting to where you need or want to be, but your journey can require many small steps that build on each other and incrementally get you closer to your goal. Thanks for listening and watching. I hope you got something out of the interview and join me again next week. Until then, take care.